Hello, my name is Mary McElhatton. I am the host of the Permission Mission Show. We air every Hello, welcome to the Permission Mission Show. My name is Mary McElhatton. I am your host today. We have a very exciting show today. We're going to take a very serious subject and turn it into some fun information. You want to join into today's show. If any of you have any questions during today's show, please get into the chat, put your question in there. I have a very powerful woman who's going to answer some really great questions, great information, one that we all want to know. Permission Mission is a platform for us to normalize the conversation on mortality, and our subject today is about estate planning. Please welcome my friend, Rena McDonald, who has her own law firm. It's called the Eclipse Law Firm Law Group here in Las Vegas, Nevada since 2007. I know that you guys were recognized for being top 100 women in Las Vegas and also the top 100 lawyers best of Las Vegas. Welcome, Rena, to the show. I'm excited for the guest out there because I'm just curious, what is the most common question as a estate planning attorney that you get when a family reaches out to you?
Thank you so much for having me on today. I'm so excited to be here and to share. The biggest question I always get is, do I need an estate plan?
Okay.
And my short answer is always yes.
Yes.
If you have stuff that you want somebody to get, then yes, you need an estate plan. If you don't have anybody that you care if they get stuff, or if you don't have any stuff to give, then probably not. But most people work and build their legacy, their assets with the idea that they're going to pass those on. So yes, they need an estate plan.
They need an estate plan. And I think, like me, a lot of people just think, well, I'm focused on living. I'm just focused on, what I need today or what I want today, not even thinking about the end in mind of where is all this going to go. So is that pretty common with me as well as other people?
Yeah, to be quite honest, most people don't reach out to me until they have an issue. So until they deal with their parents passing, or if they've recently had a child that they're having concerns about making sure that they're protected. So unless something triggers for most people, this isn't something that they think about, even though they should.
Yeah. So what's the difference between a will and an estate?
So an estate is everything that you have. It's all of your assets. It's everything together. A will is a device by which you choose who gets that. So if you have nothing when you pass away, there's a statutory scheme about how your assets are divided. That's called intestate. Most people don't want that. They want control. So you can name your successors, your beneficiaries, under a will, and you can choose somebody to be in charge of it. The problem with both of those is that you can't own anything after you pass away. Your assets technically transfer to the state. Your state then gives those assets to your beneficiaries, either through your will or through the statutes. That's what probate is.
Probate. There's that big word, that big P word.
So, and it makes sense. You can't have people who are gone signing documents to transfer assets. So it makes sense, but it's really difficult.
Sure. Well, yeah. I mean, once the person is passed, they have no say so or do so of anything. So that puts a family in a situation where now someone's kind kind of take charge of it and then delegate it based on what the will was or how it was set up.
Right.
Do you find a lot of times, Rena, that those are not current, accurate because maybe things have changed? I mean, this is because, I work in the funeral industry. I worked for the largest funeral company in the world. And I find the similar thing is like, by time they may have pre-planned like 25 years ago, but their beneficiaries or their information was never updated to what would be current today. Does that make sense? Like,
Absolutely.
it's like, okay, we are going to do the best that we can, but some things have changed. So,
Yeah, it's one of the biggest problems with just creating something and forgetting.
yeah.
Is that you change, your wishes change, your desires change, your relationships change, and you want to make sure that your estate plan reflects that. So you want to touch it. I recommend to my clients the beginning of the year, they're gearing up for a new year. It's a good time to look at it and make sure everything is still the way you want it.
Why do you think people shy away from doing an estate?
Well, it's scary, right? Nobody wants to think about being gone and what they're leaving behind. But the truth is, once you do these things, you have that peace of mind of knowing it's taken care of, right?
Yes.
And anybody who's ever dealt with these issues, anybody who's ever had to go through probate knows what a gift that is to give somebody, the people that you care about. So, yeah.
That is exactly on the pre-planning part. Once I always say it's uncomfortable for about 30 seconds. And then all of a sudden there's this freedom that comes with it. There's this peace of mind that you don't have to think about it anymore. You get to just focus on life and living, and also knowing that everything you worked hard for goes to the place that you would like it to go. I do you find it often that people feel like they don't need an estate because they don't have enough?
I hear that all the time.
Okay.
I have nothing.
Yeah.
And it always makes me laugh because then we sit down and we start going through it. And these are people who own like several houses and they have a good amount of money saved up for retirement, which is great. And they're like, well, I don't have anything. You have a lot, really.
Yeah. Do you have kids?
Right?
You have something
You have
very
something.
valuable.
The threshold in Nevada really is $100,000. So if you liquidated all of your assets and the value of that is over $100,000, if you have to go through probate, it's a long probate. If it's under $100,000, it's going to be about 6 months to go through probate, and it's pretty fast.
Okay.
But it's still a process. And to be quite honest, it's not a process most people can deal with themselves. Most of them end up hiring an attorney to deal with it.
Which could take that 100,000.
Right.
And
then
you're left with nothing.
If it's so typical probates in Nevada are 3 to 5 years.
3 to 5 years.
3 to 5 years. And 35% of all assets are spent through probate. So for every $100 you've saved up, $35 of that is going to go through to probate costs. It just disappears.
Wow. I wonder if it's just because the conversation, out there in the world, the conversation is tough. Right here, doing the permission mission, doing what you do, we are educated about something that most aren't. And it's a no-brainer for us because of this, right?
Right.
It's how do you get the message clearer to the public on, like, how do you get a family feeling comfortable enough to proceed forward with the estate planning?
Well, avenues like this are wonderful because people can listen and they're going to hear something that usually touches them in some way.
Yeah.
I think the easiest is when they come to me when they've just dealt with their parents going through it and their parents didn't do anything and they had to go through probate and they're like, I don't want to do that to my children. Those are easy conversations.
Yeah.
But to be quite honest, by the time most people reach out to me, they've already decided this is something that they need to do, right?
Yeah.
But when I'm just talking to people in general, I give them a lot of examples of things that my clients have gone through. And it's usually a good reminder that you don't want to be there.
Sure.
So I have a client recently who came to me. She was married, but everything was in her husband's name because he made more money and he had better credit. So, including their house. It used to be in Nevada, when one spouse passed away, everything automatically transferred over. That's not true anymore.
It's not.
So, bank accounts, the house, everything was in his name. She can't access any of it.
Oh, gosh.
So now she's having to go through probate to try to get the house back in her name. In the meantime, she couldn't make the mortgage payments because she couldn't access the bank accounts.
Right.
So it's now gone into foreclosure, the house has.
On top of losing the
On
love
top
of your life.
So instead of being able to mourn and grieve and deal with that, she's having to deal with these other issues. And I'm sure that was not the intention of the husband.
Absolutely not.
Right.
Again, not being a taboo subject is hurting people more than it could help someone.
Oh, absolutely.
You know that he didn't intentionally do that to his spouse.
Right.
It's just that how do we make sure that the message are clear for that not to happen? And
I think this is one of those examples too where it's okay to be selfish. If you know that you are the beneficiary of something for your parents, for example, it's okay to ask them, what have you done? Because it's ultimately going to fall on you. You can have those conversations or direct them to a professional to have those conversations, because sometimes that's a little bit easier. But have the conversations. Don't be afraid of the conversations. You're not going to die just because you're talking about dying. You're going to die. It's going to happen.
yes, no one is going to die asking about planning for their final. It's simply could actually add less stress and have more quality of life. Yes, we have a question.
Yes, it was. What about living trusts? Are they worth it? Is that something that people should consider? Is it a good idea?
So the next level up from a will is to create a trust. And this is what I recommend for most of my clients, specifically when they tell me the equity or the value of their estate is going to be over 100,000. A trust acts very similar to a business, like a fictitious entity that you create. You actually transfer ownership of your assets to the trust. The trust holds them, it controls them, and then it passes them on because it will survive you. So when you pass away, the trust still exists.
Yeah.
Now there's somebody else in charge of it. They act like an executor. Technically they're called a successor trustee, and they make sure those assets go to your beneficiaries. Trusts are specifically important when your beneficiaries are children or under the age that you've designated for them to receive assets. So people always ask me, what's a good age? And I'm like, 50 is a good age for people to get assets. But the truth is 97% of all estates are spent in the first year, right? So I recommend at least 25 or 30, right? It's shocking. Gone within a year. Everything these people, earn their whole lives, gone.
Really? Oh my gosh.
So if you have a child, you can set up a trust so that their needs are taken care of and you don't have to worry about them. That money is sitting there. It can be tapped into for education or medical, or maybe they are very mature and they need a house or something.
Sure.
Your successor trustee can make those decisions the same as you would make those decisions. So I recommend trusts. It's the best level in terms of control. It completely avoids probate. And it's a great idea.
Completely avoids probate.
Completely.
Just wanted to say that a second time.
When you pass away and you don't have anything or you have a will, you have to go file a petition with the court. It takes about 3 months before there's a hearing. The court will issue letters. From those letters, you can then go into a bank and get access to a bank account. So 3 months minimum.
3 months minimum. You
Minimum.
are not going to have access, which then could cause a lot of problems for a person who has no funds to bury their loved one.
Right. Versus if you have a trust, literally the first day with a death certificate, I can walk into the bank and access the assets.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit? Yes. Can you tell us a little bit about irrevocable and revocable?
Yes.
Living trust, right? Living trust.
Living trust.
Okay.
I do want to make one designation. So I'm referring to an estate plan as a trust, but some people call a medical power of attorney a living will. So I'm just going to make that distinction that that is actually a power of attorney document. It has nothing to do with the actual estate plan.
Okay.
But sometimes people get a little confused in these words, and why they use these words, I have no idea. I think it's very confusing for people. But so for the most part, there's two types of trusts that we draft for people. There's revocable or irrevocable. Really, the difference is one you can make changes to and one you cannot.
And why would you have one that you could not?
So there are benefits to having an irrevocable trust. It's very specific. People who are creating legacy gifts, like the Paris Hiltons of the world, they want the funds to last for generations.
Okay.
So they create an irrevocable trust where you can't make any changes to it. The people get a monthly amount allotted to them, and that's all that comes out. The way it benefits what I consider the ordinary person is there are situations where later in life, if you don't have the ability to care for yourself long term, the government will step in and pay for your long-term care. That's good, right? We want to make sure that our elderly are being taken care of. The issue is if they had assets after they pass away, the government can come in and collect those assets. So here's the situation. You have an elderly parent, let's say they're in their 90s, they need long-term care. They move into a facility. The average cost is, I think it's like $3,500 a month right now is the average cost for long-term care, and that's not a great facility.
I was going to say 35
That's like
to
the low end.
5,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes higher.
So that gets paid every month. So let's say they stay in there for a year, and then they pass away. So now that amount is, let's say, $45,000 approximately. So they're going to, and let's say they owned a home.
Okay.
They're going to take that money out of the sale of the house or the bank accounts or whatever assets were there prior to them going to the beneficiaries at all.
Interesting.
So if you create an irrevocable trust, and it has to be done years in advance.
It does.
Yeah,
Okay.
at least 6 years in advance. It can't be last minute.
Okay. So
As long as it's done beforehand and it's irrevocable,
yeah,
then that money doesn't come out.
what do you recommend as far as keeping things simple but accurate, direct, kind of more direct? Because I can see how it can get a little bit confusing and not really knowing the law and how it works or how it doesn't work. So what do you recommend as a starting point for someone I'm ready to do this? Tell me what would be the best. Is it based on per situation?
It's usually based on per situation, because clearly I'm going to give a person who is in their 80s different advice than I am someone in their 40s.
Sure.
Because in their 40s, it should be completely revocable, because half marriages end, life changes. You want to be able to make those changes as you're going through.
Okay.
But when you're older, if you don't have, and I have the conversation with my client, like what kind of long-term care insurance do you have or benefits or anything? What would you be covered with? And if they're not being protected, then I would have that conversation. So yes, it is very complicated. What should you do? My advice, ask an attorney, right?
Ask an attorney, yeah.
And usually most attorneys, my office included, we give free consultations. So specifically for things like this, mention that you watch this, and when you call in, and you wouldn't be charged a consultation fee. We would sit down, kind of go through what you need. And I'm not always the right fit for people. So sometimes people can do it themselves, and I would explain what they would need to do and what they would need to create. Sometimes you need something a little bit more complicated. Again, a good time to talk to an attorney about it.
Yeah. I told Rena, we were talking earlier, and I think what I really respect about you is you're not your typical, I don't want to say that attorneys have an attitude. Yes, attorneys do have an attitude for the most part. I appreciate that. I respect that. I think you're real genuine in why you do this. So what made you get into this?
So I've been an attorney for 20 years now here in Las Vegas, and my clients needed different things over the years. So our office has kind of changed in what kind of law we practice. I had an experience with my grandmother. It's probably been 8 years ago now, where she found out she had cancer, and it wasn't looking good. So we had this conversation, and she said, I want to make sure I'm getting my estate planning done. And I had done it for years for my clients, but I'd never really made those connections in my life dealing with that. So we sat down, we had these amazing conversations. And I know this is a taboo subject no one likes to talk about, but for me and my grandmother, I was able to connect with her in a way that I'd never known her before. Yeah. We had these great conversations, and we set up everything the way she wanted it done. And when she passed, it was very easy for me to feel comfortable about all the decisions that were being made, because I knew that's what she wanted, because we'd had that conversation. Yeah. Now, I compare that to another situation where I had a client who lost someone very quickly. They had no planning, and they have struggled every day to deal with the legal ramifications of that person being gone. Having those two events happen to me fairly closely, I really realized that what I'm doing makes a difference in kind of a bigger, broader way than just the legality of it. Yeah. And seeing them deal with it, the stress and anxiety, and knowing like the peace I had in my heart about the whole situation just made me feel horrible. So I realized at that point, I really need to make this a bigger part of my practice and do a lot of things like this where I talk about it. I want to make sure that this conversation is being had. And if I can help one person have this conversation, then I feel like it's a success.
Yes, absolutely. And they feel like a success, because a family, I'm going to dive into a beautiful gift that you poured your heart and soul into, which is a book that Rena wrote. And the very first thing it says is, Benjamin Franklin once said, by failing to plan, you are preparing to fail. And I was like, man, right to the point.
Bam.
Rena, right to the point. So Rena wrote this book. It's called Because I Care. It's an estate planning journal. And I went through this when you first gave it to me, and I was just like, wow, this is very cool, very direct. But it's also, it helps you to start thinking about other things too. You know, I thought, and you can talk kind of more about it, like what led you to make this and how they will benefit, because I do want you to know that you can get a copy of Rena's journal book here. And I just know that, especially if you have children or grandchildren, and one day great grandchildren, or even more, like, this is your own handwriting. So this is special. I know our company has what's called a personal planning, and it's this only kind of more just kind of not as it's yours has way more important questions geared towards things that we don't necessarily think about, like our items, our animals, our children. I will tell you though, I barely fit enough of my kids in your book, because she has a room for 6 and I have 6 children. And I was thinking, what about with all the other people who have more than 6 children? They just add a page.
You can add pages
in,
yeah.
Yeah. So talk to us about how this book came about.
So I, for my clients, create an entire legal plan. So when I say estate plan, that includes a will, a trust, power of attorney documents, burial instructions, all the things. But I found that clients would come to me afterwards and they would say, how do I get, their parent had passed, and they'd say, what do I do next? Mm-hmm. It used to be very easy 10 years ago. I would say, just watch the mail for a month or two. You'll see what bills are coming in, what's going out. Nobody gets mail anymore. This is a problem now.
Everything's directly billed or automatic
Right.
payments. Yeah.
So if you don't have that information, one of the most important things we have to do in the probate process, or even with an estate when you're closing it out, you have to make sure you know where all the assets and all the debts are, because you got to make sure the debts get paid. Then the assets go to the beneficiaries. So if you don't have that information, you can't do it. So I started creating like a list, and it started out as one page of things. Hey, you should write this down so that your beneficiaries know. That list became like a pamphlet of like 10 pages together.
Yeah.
And then with all of my experiences, I thought, I'm going to make a book just for my clients. So I went to a publisher. She read it and she was like, oh no, we're making this like a book and we're putting it out in the world.
Yeah.
So I'm very proud of my book. And that's kind of where, where it started. But I tried to be as comprehensive as I could. And I looked at my own life. My husband is very involved with our family and my children, but I don't think he knows that where I take them to the dentist, because I do that.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and I have no idea of the things he does. I don't even know what they are. So I had to sit down with him, and
He's taking the kids to the swimming
he takes them to
park.
scouts. He
Okay.
he keeps all the passwords and all the computers. I don't even know what our Wi-Fi password is, because he does all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So I tried to create a comprehensive journal where you could write all of that down.
Yeah.
So that was my goal. And I love my journal. I'm very proud of it. I've written 4 different books, and some have been international bestsellers, but this one is by far my favorite book. I'm very proud of it.
It's dear to your heart.
Yes.
Well, you can tell that you put your heart and soul in here. Again, just a place to really open up communication. Think about those things like you had mentioned, like the bills with the parents and things like that. We're going to take a commercial here in a quick second, but Rena, why do you think I'm hearing this time and time again, and we will have a show about it, but some of our vintage mom and dads don't want to have this conversations. So what do you suggest?
I think they're just afraid of, one, angering people, like that they want something that is going to upset somebody.
Oh, because
there might be different children. Like in my family, we all kind of fight over this one object that my mom has. And we always joke about like, oh, I'm the favorite today. It would go to me. And so I know she's like, it makes her uncomfortable. I think it's kind of funny. Because she has one.
And how many kids?
3 children.
Oh, Lord, yes.
So we kind of fight. We all
Someone
fight
can
over
argue.
it. Right. So I think that sometimes is the concern. I think people think they always have tomorrow. And another thing I say often is you always have tomorrow until you don't. Mm. And so they just think they can do it in the future. Yeah. And they put it off. Some people don't recognize the importance of it because they haven't gone through it themselves. And so I think that the easiest way to start the conversation is to ask, to just talk about it, and to make sure people are watching shows like this, that I think buying this book is a great gift for someone, and an easy way to say, hey, I saw this. I thought it would be a great place for you to keep all your stuff so you can remember. Yeah. Which really, it's so that you know what it is.
Yeah. We are going to go to a commercial real quick. We are broadcasting live here in Las Vegas, Nevada. My guest here, Rena McDonald, who is an attorney, estate planning attorney here in Las Vegas since 2007. Please, if you have any questions in the chat, post them. You can always share today's show. If you have a family member who would benefit from this information, please feel free to share it on the Permission Mission Facebook page, also the WWDBTV Facebook page, and also YouTube, and Mary McElhatton Facebook. We're going to go to a commercial. We'll see you right back.
Hello folks, this is Mac Jackson Jr. from Vanderson Cyber Group. The problem with businesses today is that they are affected by cyber attacks from around the world. but companies are not sure of what to do. Normally, they are reactive instead of proactive. But folks, cyber attacks can affect your bottom line, and it will affect you financially, legally, and your business reputation. Here at Vantage Cyber Group, we can help you develop a policy by training your employees on what to do if they are involved in a cyber attack and how to mitigate it and fight against it. Folks, we call it here #StayCyberWoke. That's Vantage Cyber Group here in Las Vegas and around the world. You can reach me, folks, at WWDBTV.com or my website, MacJacksonJr.com as well. Here locally, 702-868-0808. Give us a call today, folks. We must fight back.
Welcome back to the Permission Mission Show. My name is Mary McElhatton, your host. I am here with Rena McDonald, who is from the Eclipse Law Group. She is an attorney representing families out there to make sure that they're taking what they've worked their whole life for and make sure that it goes to good things long after they've passed away. So if you're just out there, listening, we were talking about a book that Rena had put together. It is a labor of love. Most people talk about writing a book. Very few actually do it. So congratulations. And I know that you have other books out there as well. But talk to us about how we can get this book, because I think, when you were talking about these questions that we don't typically have answers to, I was even looking in here, like people may have safety deposit boxes that families aren't even aware that they have them. I wonder how many safety deposit boxes have never been claimed. That's true. When we don't have this discussion ahead of time, there could be very valuable things still left in a safety deposit box that no one would even know that they had, or a life insurance policy, or a, stocks, bonds. I mean, I've recently come to a place where I had purchased a stock, but I lost the information to it. I'm not even able to claim it because I have lost the information. Had I put it in a specific place, it would have made the world a difference. So how can someone get a hold of this book?
So you can get this book through Amazon.
Okay.
Amazon.com. It's Because I Care by Rena McDonald. You can also access it through our website. So eclipselawgroup.com. There's a link on there that takes you straight to the Amazon page, and you can order it that way.
Awesome.
I also provide a copy of it to my clients. So if you end up doing an estate in our office, you get a copy of the book.
Very cool. That's a great incentive, I will tell you, because if you just spend a few minutes of it being uncomfortable, like facing the inevitable, what a difference it can make for everybody later on. So
Absolutely.
You've got me curious though. What's the one item your mom, because we have one item in our family that our kids, there's 8 of us. So mom had 11 children. There's 8 of us still living. And there's one item that a lot of us are like, I have it. No, mom, I'm her favorite. I even went as far as sending my mom this coffee cup that's this big, and it says, "From your favorite daughter."
Oh, how fun. It's an old xylophone or an phonograph like machine.
Oh,
so
cool.
It's beautiful.
Like a vintage.
Yes, and it's
Okay.
It's very old, and we all just have memories of like playing on it and getting yelled at for don't touch it, and
Don't touch it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gotta preserve it. Gotta keep it around.
Right.
So you heard her. You can definitely get a copy of this book on her website. We will also post the number to get in contact with Rena. Sit down with her. Just have that simple conversation. Get guided into what direction would be best suitable for your family. Everybody's needs are different. Everybody's circumstances could be different. At least give you the chance to let her just tell you where and what to do when it comes best to protecting your family. Because that's what this is all about, is truly keeping our things we worked hard for safe and also our families protected. You felt loved and cared about because your grandmothers took the time to work through all of that with you.
And I felt at peace with the whole process. So when she passed, I was able to mourn her and really cherish her and our relationship instead of focusing on these silly things that just don't matter.
You bring up a great point. Proper grieving. It takes all the guesswork and eliminates all that frustration when people are emotional, trying to make the best decisions on an emotional day. It's not always the perfect outcome, right? Instead of having things done in advance where we've talked about it as a family, come up with a solution like my mom. So our item is a fudge pan.
Oh, okay.
Okay, it's called the fudge pan. It is a cast iron pan that probably is 80 years old. And my mom has had it her entire, she's 89. She's had it with her from almost day one. And the fudge tends to come out perfectly in this pan, and it doesn't in everybody else's pan. Now, my sister, though, most likely will get it. My youngest sister, because she's the one that does the fudge every year.
That makes sense.
It qualifies her
Yes.
to get the fudge pan. When I know me, I'm not going to make a lot of fudge. I'll eat it. So I don't make it because I don't want to eat the fudge.
Can I get her number?
Nothing ruins a family, though, like someone passing away. So we joke about this fudge pan and, our family's items. There's almost always something.
Yeah.
But if you already have high emotions, you're dealing with someone passing that you care about, all of a sudden, all these insecurities from years, I remember the one time you got whatever and I didn't get whatever, I should have this. It can destroy a family. I had a client in a probate matter years ago. They were fighting over their father's belt buckles. He had some rodeo. He was a rodeo person and he had some belt buckles. They will never speak again because of the belt buckles. And I can tell you, I know for a fact that was not the intention of the parent, like his dad. That wasn't what the dad wanted.
Yeah.
They wanted them to share them. Now, I would never suggest that you share, but we've done some crazy things. We've set up time schedules for different items.
That's a great idea.
Sometimes
there's
that
always
works.
a solution.
If you're willing to talk about it, you can mediate it. But if you're already upset and angry and you're trying to deal with that, it's crazy. It's just crazy.
Yeah. Bringing permission to have the conversation and will allow people to also trust the process. I never expected to get peace in my siblings passing until I came to work for the funeral home and realized that we all do. I never put urgency on my own life until my father had literally just 90 days. It was like interesting how that all, how it all comes together. And it is a number one destroyer. Death has become the number one destroyer, worse than any cancer, worse than any disease. It's death that's just destroying families. And it doesn't have to be that way.
At a time you should be coming together, these silly little things are what pull you apart. And it's just really sad. So that's my one woman mission, two women mission.
Two women mission is to keep this conversation alive. Let it be okay for us to talk about our things. I'm sitting here thinking my mom, if she knew that we didn't get along after her passing, that would just wipe out everything she worked hard to do as a mother. I'm sure that's probably, that father.
I'm sure.
He would have never wanted that to happen to his children being separated and divided over a belt buckle. He may have even bought more if he had a chance.
Yeah.
He could have,
or
he could have purchased enough that
maybe he
everybody
would have donated it to something or just got rid of
yeah.
it if he knew it was going to cause that big of an issue. And the kids spent tens of thousands of dollars fighting over this belt buckle.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, the judge said, if you guys can't resolve this, I'm going to sell it and you guys can split the money from it. So no one got it.
Nobody got it. Because when families don't agree, how does that work? Like if you have a situation where a family now is in probate, they don't agree. Is it dictated by the courts at that point?
You have an independent party, the judge, who does not know you. He doesn't know the person that passed away. He has no ties to what you're dealing, or he or she have no ties to what you're dealing with. They're going to be making those decisions. That's not what you want. You want to make those decisions.
Sure. Yeah. Well, you feel empowered when you're making your own decisions. A wrong decision is always one that's just never made. That is
Right.
the only wrong decision that we could ever make,
Right.
is one that is never made. Yes, we have a question.
I hope I get this right. It's about banks. If I have a bank account, I'm kind of paraphrasing. If I have a bank account, I can go to the bank and designate a beneficiary in case of my death. Is that correct?
Yes, you can
Okay.
name a beneficiary on death for the account.
Okay.
So usually the bank will just transfer the money or issue the funds after the person passes. Now that process can take 6 months to finalize. As I'm sure it's not a shock, banks are hesitant to release money for any reason.
No.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they do anything they can. And to be quite honest, they've gotten, I'll say, stinky about doing this recently, where they will sometimes require a court order. If it's over that $100,000 threshold, for sure, you will have to have a court order, even if there's a beneficiary upon death. So I don't recommend you relying on that. There's actually a similar thing with real property that you can do a deed upon death, which means when you pass away, that transfers to someone. Again, the recorder's office is not doing those transfers. They're requiring you to get a court order, which means you're going through probate to get that done.
So bottom
What,
line is,
what would be the alternative then if that was your wish? In other words, you have a house, you want
Somebody to get it.
somebody to get it upon your death. Can you put them on the title before you die, or?
So I recommend a trust. That's the best
Okay.
purpose for a trust. You can put them on title. Here's the problem, is that they are then a co-owner of the property. So one, you can't change your mind without them agreeing to come off. And sometimes later in life, there's disagreements between parents and their children, and they want to change, or they're living with one child and they want to make sure that child gets more or whatever. So you can't do that without the other person's permission. So you have to know that they're going to allow that. More importantly, I think, is that they are now a co-owner, and if something happens, that property is subject to their liability. So let's assume they're a good kid and they don't do anything wrong, but they get in a car accident and somebody sues, they can get that house. So I don't
Yes.
recommend that. Versus if it's in a trust, they can't access it.
so trust is for your protection, surviving people's protection.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, one of the things that comes up, even myself, I think about, so I have a trust. What gets me nervous is updating it all the time, because I know that there's more fees and stuff. And let's be real, I'm raising kids and grandkids. So what do you recommend for somebody to have prepared ahead of time before they do their trust, so it can be as thorough as possible? Is that the book?
The book is a great place to start.
Okay.
You have to know what your assets are before you start doing the trust. Trusts don't have to be updated all the time. That being said, the laws do change quite frequently, and when they do, then it needs to get updated. When you buy or sell major assets, you might want to have somebody just take a look at it. And if you have a good relationship with your estate planning, most of the time they don't charge for those kind of conversations. You have to just make sure that you're managing it like you would anything else. And
Sure.
you're creating a legacy for the people you care about. It's worth a little bit of time and a little bit of money to deal with. I would tell you, paying for an estate is a lot cheaper than going through probate.
Oh,
So-
goodness, yeah. When you were talking about 35% of it goes to,
Gone.
it's done. It's like you might as well just hand it at the door.
And you look at even celebrities. Celebrities are some of my favorite examples. And another great way to have a conversation. Aretha Franklin passed away, and I think her estate was worth about $80 million when she passed. She had given somebody a piece of paper saying, I want everything to go to my children, and just signed and dated. That's all she had, which is insane.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So-
and it's simply because they're not seeing
Not
shows
having
like
this-
this.
not having this conversation, not doing it.
because she was a beautiful, talented woman.
Yes. And
Very smart, but afraid because the world says don't have the talk.
right.
Let other people deal with it, but not understanding all of the ramifications that come with that, all the destruction that comes with that.
She
So-
ended up, when they were moving her furniture, they found a note crumpled in that had been tucked down in the couch that said, I want son A to have everything. Okay. So when she wrote it, why she wrote it, how it ended up crumpled up into the couch, no one knows. But a jury determined that that was a valid will. This is recent. This was just a few months ago.
Oh my
And gave the
goodness.
estate entirely to that son. And now I think there was like over 60% of the estate was gone through the litigation process.
Mhm. Yeah.
So,
So-
I'm sure that wasn't the intention. Even and they both would have ended up with more had they not thought about it.
Sure. Yeah. I was going to say, what a lucky young gentleman, yet at the end, not really so lucky, because probably no family is talking.
Oh no, they'll never.
Right.
Yeah,
I
I'm
mean,
sure they'll
it's-
never
it's-
communicate.
It's
you see
destroyed.
Lisa Marie Presley. That was a whole problem that the grandmother is no longer talking to the granddaughter.
Yeah.
Prince, 27 different claims came out after he passed away saying he was my dad. So they had to go through genetic testing 27 times to determine none of the children that came forward were actually his.
Wow. Wow.
And like his estate spent all this money having to disprove these claims. He had no estate planning.
Yeah.
It's insane.
It saddens me because I can see where, people of wealth have a lot of trust issues. They have a lot of trust issues. Like, let's just be real. People aren't gonna, come flocking to me to get, I don't have a whole lot. I've got enough and I've got a beautiful family. However, people who have a lot of wealth and fame and all that, it really is unfortunate that there are not more people who they can trust, because
Absolutely.
they do have the most, which is the most damaging.
And the worst when it disappears through probate. Like it hurts my heart to think of it. Even
And you're an attorney. However,
and-
you know that it's like,
I know
shouldn't
how
it be
awful
like
it
that?
is. Even Howard Hughes, his estate was worth in today's money billions.
Yeah.
92% of it was spent through litigation. People saying that they were the legitimate heir, that he wrote a letter, that whatever, and ultimately the money all went to charity. Think of where that 92% of that money could have benefited those charities that the money ultimately went to.
Sure.
Gone
Gone.
to
Yeah.
attorneys.
What is the statistics as far as you had mentioned, like, I guess a year, like, and sometimes the money's gone like within the first year because of why? Because it's not properly delegated. Like,
Because it's given to people who are not age appropriate, in my opinion.
okay.
A lot of young adults are given the money and it's just spent.
Yeah.
It wasn't set up in a way that, so a lot of it ends up going to legal fees. A lot of it is not set up in a way that it's created to protect the family. There's no direction as to what to do with it. There's a lot of issues with divorce
Okay.
and legacy. So this is a big thing. If you want to create, like, let's say you have a son. I have 2 boys, so that's where my mind always goes to boys.
Yeah.
You have a son you want to give your money to. If you don't have a conversation with him before you pass and he takes the money that you've worked really hard on, and he puts it in a joint bank account, and then he gets divorced, his wife gets half that money.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Probably
And you
not
don't
your
think about-
intention, right? Versus if you have a conversation and it's set up in a trust, they can still access it if they need it, but it's there and it can be kept separate. And even if they were to get divorced, that wouldn't be an issue. So that's something I talk about a lot with my clients.
Sure.
Also making sure if you have an estate plan with somebody who's already divorced, that you dissolve it. I have people who come to me
Really?
10 years later
Okay.
that have never dissolved their trust. They still have their ex listed on all their power of attorney documents.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
That's, I'm sure, not what you wanted, right? You divorced them for a reason. So you probably don't want them to be able to make medical decisions for you, right?
Sure. Sure. Because that would that trump, as long as they're not remarried again, that still stands in place
Correct.
if it's not dissolved.
Sometimes even if they're remarried,
Even if they're remarried, how does that work?
because you have given them a power of attorney that was unlimited and you've never revoked it.
Oh, got it. Is it easy to dissolve a trust
Yeah.
or a will?
It's
I mean, is
it's a
it easy?
one page, I revoke this document.
Okay.
Sign and date. It's done.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's simple.
That's simple. But if you don't do it, the ramifications can be horrible.
Sure. Sure. This show is for this reason. What you do is for the reason of educating. And if I can't say it enough, it's the educational piece that we are missing. It's just important information, educational, to be able to help us make better results. Because if we look at the results, based on the results of how many families are being destroyed, how much money is not going to what that person who passed away worked hard for to have, I think it also, though, is getting the person who's responsible for making all of that money or those things to be okay with saying, like, okay, I don't like talking about it because it does mean that I'm not going to be here to enjoy it anymore. Yet let's talk to the ones that I do want to enjoy it,
Right.
that I do want to enjoy it even after I'm gone.
Well, I took a long time to come up with the title of my book because I care. And I really was trying to, I played with some fun. I like this to be a conversation you can have and you not be afraid to have. So I was like, because I'm gone and this is what you do. And I'm like, well, that might be a little too much. And I thought, what am I trying to convey here? Like, what is the purpose? This is for the people you care about. So this title felt very appropriate to me because you care about someone and you want them to get your stuff, or you want them to get the benefit of the work that you've created, that you've done your whole life.
Yeah.
That's what it's about. It's about caring. So I say that to clients a lot too. It's not about you. And frankly, once you've done an estate plan, you'll never need it because it's not for you.
Right.
It's for the people you care about.
Sure.
So do you care enough about the people that you're leaving to make this easy for them, to make sure that they're set up, to make sure that they're protected?
Yeah.
If not, then you don't need to have this conversation.
Yeah. It's just going to go down the way it's going to go down.
Right.
It's just going to happen the way it's going to happen. However the fall.
And sometimes that's okay.
Sure.
Sometimes that's
to
okay.
each his own. We just also know that many years ago, I was at a seminar and there was this Reverend Mary Manning Morrissey. Of all the speakers, they had some incredible speakers. Mark Victor Hansen, who wrote Chicken Soup of the Soul. All these different speakers. Brian Tracy. One thing stood out that I have held on to, that I've never been able to shake, and I'm starting to finally understand why. But she said, we do not have we do not have an abundance problem. We have a distribution problem. And I'm now understanding like how that and what she meant by that, because I don't think a lot of people really even cared that that was said. But for whatever reasons, it stuck close to my heart. And that's why I'm doing the whole mission is to have conversations ahead of time so that our distributions are worth it
And meaningful
and meaningful and
and intentional. Intentional. What do you want the intention of your life work to be?
yeah.
Do you want it to be divisive and you want your kids to fight over a belt buckle? Then by all means, don't worry about it. If that's not what you want,
Yeah.
if you want it to be peaceful and joyous and a celebration of what you created, then you need to create an estate plan.
Okay. Well, you heard it, folks. Thank you. This has been even eye-opening for myself because even though I have a family trust, there are still some things I don't have done. So you've opened up my eyes. We appreciate you today. And next week's show, but before I tell you what it's all about, I want to remind you of the 5-second rule. I have a 5-second rule here. Rena, what it is you favor inside and you value everyone and everything. Favor inside just means like favor yourself, right? We matter first. It's like what they say on the airplane. Put the oxygen mask on yourself first, and then you'll save a lot more people. I operated so many years the opposite way and was burned out all the time, didn't feel like I had a reason for enjoying life. And now I favor myself first. Favor yourself, favor and value everybody and everything, because we're all living in this big world together. It's not just my world. It's not just your world. It's our world. And figuring out how to help each other just to do it a little bit better does make a person feel better. It does. It makes us feel better when we can help one another. So next week's show is going to be one that's going to be super cool. So I'll never forget when I was told by somebody that I highly, highly admire and respect. They said to me, find your own truth, Mary, because I kept kind of going with, well, because we have cancer in our family, I'll probably have it. Oh, because my brother passed away at 15, or my brother passed away at 22, I was 14, I most likely won't live very long. So these things we grab onto, right, in our own family that sometimes doesn't help us have our best life. So it's all going to be about finding our own truth and how to do that. And obviously information from our family is fine, right? If people have illnesses and things like that, it's helpful to know that, but we don't have to make it our own. And I think that's happening a lot is people are trying to figure out who they are, trying to figure out who they're not. Yeah.
Right.
And finding your own truth is going to be the next show. I appreciate you joining in with us today. Thank you again, Rena, for being here. Please reach out to her, have that free consultation, get better prepared for your family. Know that she'll have a peace of mind. The minute you have the information, it gives you power to make better decisions. Whether you do something or not, the information is valuable in itself. We'll see you next week, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.